Welcome to Insights into Northeast Michigan, a WBKB News public affairs program. Insights deals with the issues affecting those within the community, as well as Northeast Michigan and the state. And now, Insights into Northeast Michigan.
Welcome to Insights. I'm Sherry Stewart. This week we focus our conversation on the real estate market and a report from the National Association of Realtors that says 77% of homeowners that were planning to sell their property prior to COVID-19 are still planning to move forward. Joining me to talk about the report is Jessica Lautz, Vice President of Demographics and Behavioral Insights at the NAR. And later in the broadcast, we'll be joined by Grace Marshall, who is the broker owner with Up North Property Management here in Alpena, to give us a local perspective. Well, Dr. Lautz, I want to thank you for spending this time with us today. We've got a lot to talk about. This is an extremely interesting report from the National Association of Realtors. So first off, I see that 77% of potential home sellers are preparing to sell following the end of stay-at-home orders, and I'm reading right here from the headline. Is that an interesting finding?
It is actually. There's a lot of pent-up demand right now as we all cocoon in place. We're spending a lot of time at home, so a lot of people are saying, what can I do to get my home ready to sell when I'm ready to go?
So did you find it interesting that that number of people, it's 77%, are still looking to move forward with their plans?
Absolutely. We've seen really strong numbers. So we're actually surveying this on a weekly basis. And what we found is that people are taking a temporary pause. They don't necessarily feel comfortable, either health-wise or maybe economic security right now, to move forward in that transaction at this moment. But once they do feel comfortable, they do plan to move forward with that transaction. And I suspect there's probably even more people who have been on a fast forward track now that they are spending this time at home.
Very good. Now, I see some interesting facts here for your realtors, is that many say that their clients are shifting their preferences. I find this extremely interesting. Preferences from urban areas to suburban areas due to COVID-19 and all that has been swirling around with that. Tell us about that. Unpack that for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of people who perhaps were originally looking in a more dense neighborhood and are now saying, you know what, I need the space for my own self within this home. And perhaps the suburbs or a small town will give me that space within a home. But also the thought of perhaps walking down the sidewalk and not having as many people and not having to really be concerned about that, and just having that elbow room, not only for the density of the city, but just the overcrowding in the actual home too.
And I know this is not part of your survey, but when you say that and talking about people want to have that space to walk down the street, what do you think that will do in terms of as we go forward and people start, or builders start laying out communities? Do you think that'll have some type of impact? Will we see these cookie cutter neighborhoods in some areas of the country that are popular for that? Do you think that will change?
I do think so. I think that, we've seen the millennial generation actually transform suburbs and small towns and almost recreate them to how they've envisioned them. And I think that the coronavirus is going to have the same impact as people re-envision neighborhoods where they can have their own space. I think you're going to have more private yards too as builders look at that. So perhaps less community area and more a place where you can have your own quality time in your own yard.
Let's talk some more about the survey. So it says that the buyers that because of COVID-19 that they're looking obviously for more yard space, exercising and growing. Do you think we'll be able to accommodate that type of desire with new home purchases?
I think so. I think that people are really going to seek out these home features, and if that home doesn't have that right now, I think that current owners are probably trying to transform that space that they currently own to be able to really accommodate those things. So I do think that people are going to have this increased demand, and where that demand is, typically people will try and build it so that that is available to people. That being said, if you're marketing a home or a local realtor, they may find it very, very valuable to market a home that has these home features.
Very interesting. Now, are there any highlights from various parts of the country? What regionally are you seeing in terms of people wanting to go forward home purchases and what people are actually desiring as they potentially look for a new home?
Right. And so every state is different, not only, and even within a state, you can have local rules and regulations on what can happen. And so in places where there are fewer cases, but also perhaps stay at home orders are less restrictive to the real estate practice, we do see more transactions happening. Where there's stricter lockdowns for the real estate practice, of course, there's going to be a little slower traffic right now. So we are seeing some differences there. And especially if there's a health concern and you see a very strong outbreak, you're going to have less traffic just because buyers and sellers are uncomfortable perhaps going into a home where another family does live. So, but in those instances, everyone's taking full precautions. They're wearing gloves, they're wearing masks, they're making sure that everyone stays safe in that instance.
Very good, very good. And now I see that according to your report, that it says 73% reported that their clients, meaning the realtors, their clients haven't reduced listing prices to attract buyers. So they're kind of putting the stake in the ground, and this is what it is.
Right. And there is an economic reason for it, though, besides perhaps just putting that stake in the ground. What we are seeing, we went into this crisis with extremely tight housing inventory, especially for your first time home buyers or for a buyer who wants to downsize. That type of affordable housing inventory is really, really slim on the market right now. So what we're finding is that with the coronavirus, some sellers took their homes off the market. And so that limited housing inventory for those buyers who are there is creating this even worse housing shortage. And so prices are staying steady, if not increasing in some areas.
Wow, so we do actually have a shortage of inventory on the market.
We do. And the coronavirus has actually just furthered this along actually with this tight housing inventory. So I think that that will continue for the time being, unfortunately. And so that's going to make it very difficult for a buyer who's trying to find that home. But it's also going to mean that price is going to stay steady.
Well, we are going to head to a break, Dr. Lotz. But when we come back, I want to talk about for those populations where people are downsizing, what does this market look like for them, for many that want to downsize or they've reached that phase in their life where they want to look for something smaller. So let's talk about what this market may look like for them when we come back.
Insights will return after these messages.
Welcome back to Insights. We're continuing our conversation with Dr. Lotz of the National Association of Realtors. And before the break, Dr. Lotz, we were talking about those that are in the season of their life. They want to downsize, looking for a different type of property to meet their needs. What do you think of this, the shortage of inventory, as we discussed before break? How will that affect their home search, do you think?
So it's been really interesting looking at downsizers in the past few years. What we've actually found is that people want to downsize for the home price. They don't necessarily want to pay the same amount as what they were paying perhaps in a mortgage, but we're finding that people are not downsizing in square footage as much anymore than they have historically. So I'm very curious post-pandemic if people are going to say, no, I definitely need the elbow room. I need the space within my house, even if it's just me and my spouse at this point in my life. I really do want that space so that we can each have our own personal areas. I suspect that could continue to happen right now.
Now, what about the demographics, the makeup of our families and our homes? Are we living more generational now? Is it out of choice? Is it out of necessity? Let's talk about that demographic. That's pretty interesting.
It's fascinating. We've actually seen a growth in multi-generational families who are purchasing homes together. We really see that there's a very strong minority population who is purchasing multi-generational homes. In fact, about a quarter do when they do purchase a home, which is a very large amount. But for Gen Xers and for younger boomers, they're often taking care of both their aging parents. They're taking care of children over the age of 18 who won't leave the house. And so they have both of those within the home. Those boomers used to be called that sandwich generation. I think now the Gen Xers are called the panini generation because they're taking care of everyone within that house. And I suspect that's going to continue. People are really missing their families during this time period.
That's interesting. You said the Panini generation. Oh my. Well, I will say I saw a headline about a year or so ago that a family that they had made the decision to move to that multi-generational mix purchased a home, and they just laid out how much money they were saving with this, this multi-generational family. So it can work, and I guess it's working for a lot of people.
It is, and it's actually one of the top reasons for families to purchase a multi-generational home is not just to take care of each other, but really for the cost savings as well. Because if perhaps someone is nearing retirement, but they're still making a little income, they can contribute to utilities. And perhaps, hopefully, that kid over the age of 18 who won't leave, perhaps they have a job as well, and they can contribute as well to the utilities, at least the grocery costs. It can really change the neighborhood that you're living in and the size of the home as well.
Absolutely. This is such a fascinating survey that you have put out. What are some of your other findings, Dr. Lautz, as you do these surveys and this research on a regular basis? What are some of your most recent findings here, just say from week to week?
Yeah, I think it's really fascinating. People are really relying on technology right now. If you can't see a home in person, you want to make sure that you can really have the feel of the home with a virtual listing, with a virtual tour. But also, people are moving fast. And so we do see that buyers, traditionally, they've always looked at about 12 homes. It reduced to 9 homes last year with really tightened inventory. And now people are only looking at 3 homes.
My goodness, 3 homes?
Yeah. So I think that this is one of the fascinating trends. But I think if you're a buyer out there and you're a seller out there, you're probably pretty motivated. Maybe you're going through a divorce or a new marriage. And so you really do need to make that change in your living situation. And you're ready to go.
Wow. So it seems like, would you say that perhaps the COVID-19, this whole pandemic, that it's put people in a place of self-reflection? So maybe they're not spending a lot of time mulling over these decisions because, wow, 3 homes and you're ready to buy?
Yeah, I do. I think that, families are in this situation where they're in their home with their family 24/7. And so I think we're all kind of in this Instapot situation where you're reflecting on your home, you're reflecting on your family, who you're living with, and if you need to make a change, you need to make a change.
Got it. Understood. Anything else, Dr. Lautz, in this survey? What can we look forward to, say, if we look ahead towards the end of the year? Do you foresee that there will be drastic changes in this, the real estate? Do you foresee a little bit more inventory being released? What are your thoughts there?
I think that as people, the stay-at-home orders are lifted, if people can safely move about and feel confident to do so, both for their health perspective, but also from an economic perspective, I'm optimistic that we will have a very swift rebound in both the real estate market, but then in other parts of the economy as well. But I think it's all a matter of timing and what the doctors have to say, honestly.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now you're in the Washington, D.C. area. Any apples to apples comparison there? We're in Michigan here. Any apples to apples comparison, or is these just totally different markets, would you say?
So each real estate market is different. I will say that even in the Northern Virginia area where I am, our state is being told that the rest of the state, they're loosening up restrictions. But today we were told in Northern Virginia we need to stay put for a while. So I think it's so localized to what we're seeing in outbreaks, unfortunately. And so the market has to react to that as well. But there's a lot of demand here in Northern Virginia as we see young adults. It's a very popular place to move to.
And we have some really wonderful places in Michigan. Certainly our Northeast Michigan area, people love the expanse, the areas that we have here. So probably some interesting things that will be on the forefront here as well.
Yes, absolutely. And I think honestly, there likely will be a retreat out of perhaps these dense city centers and really into places where you can have a more beautiful, larger home, have the ability to walk down the street without overcrowding.
Yes, and have a garden, as we were talking about before we came on air.
Yes, absolutely. Plant your own lettuce and kale. Yes.
Well, Dr. Lautz, I want to thank you for your time today and breaking down the important points in this survey. We really appreciate it. I'm sure that it will be helpful for our viewers, and we will have more of Insights when we come back.
Insights will return after these messages.
Welcome back to Insights. Joining me now is Grace Marshall, who is the broker owner with Up North Property Services here in Alpena. And Grace, I'm so excited to talk with you today.
Hi, Sherry. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. And we were talking earlier with Dr. Lotz with the National Association of Realtors, and she shared a lot of the national stats when it comes to what the real estate market is looking like. But that's on the national stage. We want to talk locally here for our folks in the Northeast region. So what are some of the things that you can share with us relative to what the market is looking like, what we can expect? What do you guys know about it so far?
You know, the pandemic really has not impacted the market at all, other than the fact that we weren't able to show properties during that time frame. You know, that's opened back up as of last Thursday. But with the virtual tours, with technology today, it has impacted us slightly as far as closings are concerned. But there are people in the market that are looking. There are people who want to sell, and we need to get those to the market at this point in time. So we've seen a huge influx of new listings into the market in Northeast Michigan, from like Gaylord on up to the Sheboygan area, South Alcona County. And so that's the big thing right now, is getting the properties on market so that people are able to go in. And I know that there's still some concern out there as far as COVID is concerned, and rightfully so. But life goes on. People are still in the housing market, and as realtors, we all consider ourselves essential. So we definitely want to be there to help folks out.
Absolutely. And so that actually is some good news for the region, that people are actually still moving forward with those plans. And apparently you do have inventory.
We don't have that much inventory. In fact, that's probably the area that we lack in the most. I mean, the buyers are definitely there. But the inventory, when I took a look at the statistics from the Water Wonderland Board of Realtors, the inventory does show a little bit of a downturn. Closings have continued pretty consistent, which amazes me in itself, but there were quite a few closings that were in the chute, if you want to call it, you know, for lack of better terminology, during that time frame when we were off the 8 weeks or 10 weeks that we were off. And so they've continued to close. The title companies were very responsive. The appraisers were very responsive to all of that, as were the financial institutions. And so it continued to close, which was a wonderful thing.
Now tell me, I know we've all had to use, really get familiar with technology. We obviously use it in the media way more so in terms of conducting our interviews, but what are your agents? How has the industry really embraced technology? Are we doing virtual tours? How are we getting those properties connected with the potential buyers?
Virtual tours are definitely the way to go. And I know myself sold 3 properties during this time frame, all through virtual tour, which is amazing in itself. You know, I know myself, I'm kind of a touchy-feely person. I want to be there and see it in person. I don't want to rely on a camera and someplace else. But it's all worked out for the best. And those people that were caught in a situation to where they had sold their home and needed to find someplace else to go, or who were relocating to the area and needed to find a home, that worked out well for them.
Very good. Grace, what is your recommendation, or what are some of your recommendations for people that are looking to purchase or those that are looking to sell? What are some of the important steps that they need to take as they enter into this process?
We can touch a little bit on both, actually, as long as that's okay, Sherry. You know, if you're a buyer in the market, one of the things that we like to see is that you're pre-approved, you know, that you've gotten serious enough in the process where you've actually talked to a financial advisor, whether it be a bank or a credit union or an online company, a mortgage company of some sort, and that you've gotten pre-approved. And I think as a buyer, you need to understand what that means. Pre-approved doesn't mean that you know, it's a green light and everything's good to go. There are still hoops that you're going to have to hop through. But I think it's really important as a buyer that you need to understand what your mortgage product is. Are you getting a subsidized loan through either FHA or a rural development loan or a VA loan? That changes what it is that you're able to look for somewhat. And working with an agent that understands the challenges of working with that kind of financing is really important. You know, the other thing is too, real estate is very relational. And in that, what you really need to do is work with somebody that you're comfortable with, somebody that's responsive to you, somebody that that connects with you as far as your thought processes and what you're looking for. And there's a lot of great agents in our market. There really is. The other thing is somebody that has actually taken the extra steps in this profession to get the additional education that they've needed, either as a buyer's agent or as a seller's agent. That's important because they have then been trained additionally in how to best represent you as a buyer or a seller. And then as a seller, as you're looking at your property, you need to step outside. You know, I think a lot of times we get pretty comfortable with what things are looking like.
Mhm.
And so I think what we need to do is kind of step outside, take a look. Does my lawn kind of look shabby? Does my landscaping need to be spruced? Have I gone nose blind to the smells that are inside my house? I mean, you know, when we're showing property, a lot of times a buyer will walk in and they're like, oh my gosh, you know, you get accustomed to your environment. And that can be from like a really good smell where it's overwhelming
Mhm.
to pet odor or whatever. Look at your carpets. Are they worn? Do they look like they need to be just spruced up a little bit and declutter? You know, I'm always impressed when I go into a property when a seller has prepared the property for sale. The
Mhm.
closets are neat and organized. The pantries are even neat and organized. You know, shoes are all lined up. There aren't tracks through the house as far as footprints from either your family pet or from the kids themselves. And I know it's tough when everybedy's on top of each other, being in close quarters these days, but it does make a huge difference in your house possibly over the other person's.
Wow, wow. You really unpacked a lot of great information. I love that you said that real estate is relational. So we want to look for that agent that we're comfortable with, that they're not just looking to sell a home, but they want to sell the home that you want to buy.
That's right. Are they really listening to you? You know,
Mhm.
because there's a lot of times, you know, we always say that buyers, a lot of times they don't know exactly what they're looking for, but they know when they walk into it. So you need to pick up the cues from the buyer as you're working with them. Okay, they might not like this in the last home. The
Mhm.
next home that they really want to look at has that in there, but you want to make sure that they're informed when they go into it and have that constant open communication.
Well, Grace, I want to thank you for spending time with us today. You've unpacked a lot of great information. Some of the key points, of course, is that a relationship is relational. Make sure that we don't get totally so comfortable with our environment that we get, you said, nose blind to some of the things that we take for granted there. But again, we thank you for sharing these great tips with us on the local real estate market here in Northeast Michigan.
Thanks, Sherry, for having me.
All right, have a great one. Well, that's all we have for you this week. If you have a question, comment, or story idea for us here at Insights, send an email to news@wbkb11.com. I'm Sherry Stewart. Thank you again for watching.
Insights into Northeast Michigan is produced by WBKB News. This has been a production of Thunder Bay Broadcasting Corporation. All rights reserved.